The President of the United States and his administration are very clearly saying that they are cracking down on what they consider hate speech. Now, there's a lot of opinions floating around about that, and of course about the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel over something he said on his show. Here's the thing. I don't really care about Jimmy Kimmel because this video and what the president and his administration are talking about are actually not about Jimmy Kimmel at all. It's actually much bigger than Jimmy Kimmel. Now, I did a whole deep dive video last night on all that Jimmy Kimmel stuff, and it's over on my Substack if you want to check it out. But for this video, as always, I want to start with the facts. And yes, this is definitely another deep dive video, so have a seat, get a snack. We're going to be here a while. While on Air Force One today, reporters asked President Trump about what happened to Jimmy Kimmel last night. In his response, Trump threatened to pull broadcast licenses from anyone who was critical of him.
I read someplace that the networks were 97% against me. I get 97% negative, and yet I won it easily. I won all 7 swing states, popular, I won everything. And if they're 97% against, they give me only bad publicity or press. I mean, they're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away.
That statement comes as Trump told another reporter from ABC earlier this week this.
And what do you make Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
Should probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC.
Okay, those are serious statements that every single person that is watching right now should be paying attention to. You need to understand what the President of the United States is suggesting is if his administration follows through, and they usually do, his administration would restrict the speech of people and organizations that say things about Trump that he doesn't like. Now, you can agree with the president and think that's great, or you can think he's absolutely off the rails. That is your choice. I have no position on that. But if you agree with what President Trump is saying, you need to remember that once the First Amendment door is kicked down, it'll be very difficult to bring that constitutional right back. And as I always say, what goes around comes around. So when another administration takes over, the next president can do the exact same thing Trump is doing, maybe to a broadcaster you like, or maybe even to you. So the real question is, can the president even follow through with what he is suggesting? And to understand that, you need to understand the facts about 2 things: the First Amendment and the actual power of the FCC. Let's start with the First Amendment. The United States Constitution prohibits the government from going after you for speaking negatively about the government or the president, even if that speech is hateful or distasteful or offensive. In fact, hate speech is absolutely protected speech according to long-standing Supreme Court precedent. You have every right to say what you want. And so do U.S. companies. The First Amendment applies to them too. Now, there are some exceptions to the First Amendment. You cannot yell fire in a theater, you cannot threaten someone with violence, and you cannot incite lawlessness. But you should also know, freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences, especially from private companies. ABC had every right to pull Jimmy Kimmel off the air, just like CBS had every right to cancel Stephen Colbert's show. But when you think about it, the question becomes, does the government have the right to pressure a private company to punish a private person for their speech? Generally, the Supreme Court says absolutely not. And that leads me to the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. That is the government entity that is in charge of approving broadcast licenses. The guy in charge of that agency right now is a Trump appointee named Brendan Carr. We've talked about him before on my channel. He was the one who really encouraged Congress to pass the TikTok ban back in 2022, among many other things. Now, Brendan Carr, just yesterday, right before ABC announced that Kimmel was suspended, said, "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct and take actions on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead." That, my friends, sure sounds like a threat from the U.S. government to a private company. Carr is saying that ABC's license could be pulled if they didn't do something about Kimmel. Now, while the FCC has a lot of power, the FCC does not have the power to pull a broadcaster's license because of speech the government doesn't like. Right on the FCC website, it specifically says, the First Amendment, as well as Section 326 of the Communications Act, prohibits the Commission from censoring broadcast material and from interfering with freedom of expression in broadcasting. The Constitution's protection of free speech includes programming that may be objectionable to many viewers or listeners. Therefore, the FCC cannot prevent the broadcast of any particular point of view. In this regard, the Commission has observed that the public interest is best served by permitting free expression of views. It goes on to say the First Amendment protects broadcasts that criticize or ridicule established customs and institutions, including the government and its officials. The Commission recognizes that under our Constitution, people must be free to say things that the majority may abhor, not only what most people may find tolerable or congenial. There you have it, in black and white, right from the FCC website. However, that doesn't mean the right to have a broadcast license is absolute. The FCC can pull a broadcast license for several specific reasons that are documented and adjudicated. Things that will get a broadcast license revoked include serious financial misconduct or technical misconduct or showing a pattern of not following communications laws. But licenses can also be revoked if a broadcaster is operating in a way that harms the public interest or broadcasts intentional news distortion or broadcasts false information that would lead to public harm. By the way, this does not apply to cable channels. They do not require a broadcast license from the FCC. But broadcasters who use the airwaves do, like ABC and CBS. Now, important here, when we're talking about revoking broadcast licenses, the default is always the First Amendment. The government cannot censor what broadcasters say, and revocation of licenses for those specific reasons is very rare. The FCC rules specifically say in order for the Commission to revoke a license, there must be overwhelming and compelling evidence to prove a broadcaster was intentionally and knowingly and willingly distorting news or perpetrating hoaxes or broadcasting content that is meant to incite lawlessness. So, if it's that difficult for the FCC to actually pull a broadcast license, and the broadcasters know that, why are they even entertaining Trump or his administration or seemingly rolling over and just doing what the president wants? Well, my friends, it is a tale as old as time. Money. Not only does the FCC approve broadcast licenses, the FCC also approves media company mergers. So based on what we're seeing from big media companies, it's just easier for them to comply with the Trump administration than fight them on the First Amendment because they want something from the FCC. They want approvals for their billion-dollar mergers. So I want to leave you with one last thing, and it's a statement from a very powerful government official over what the FCC can and can't do. This person said, should the government censor speech it doesn't like? Of course not. The FCC does not have a roving mandate to police speech in the name of the public interest. The person who said that was Brendan Carr back in 2019 when he was an FCC commissioner. So if you want to read these rules from the FCC about what they can and cannot do with broadcast licenses, I'm going to email that out to you tonight in my Facts HQ email. So make sure you sign yourself up. And if you have stuck with me right till the end, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting my work. And put in the comments a green check mark so I know you were here.